So today the idea is kind of like it's a hybrid presentation. So I've given presentations before for first-time buyers, but then, times have changed, right? And people don't buy properties traditionally anymore. Like I have like best friends buying properties, sisters buying properties, and they're saying, I want to buy it as an investment, or we were thinking about buying a home, each of us, but we can't really afford it. So we thought instead of getting a little place ourselves, we'll combine our efforts and do it together. And is that a good idea? So we want to kind of run through that. So there's kind of, we can't run through every single option, but just kind of things to think about. If I'm going to go for a property and I'm a first time person and want to know kind of what options there are, either as an investment or I want to do it together with somebody, knowing that there are options out there. That's me. And that was taken very recently. Generally as professionals, for everybody on here, by the way, whatever your line of work is, if you got that picture that you're hanging on to from like 10 years ago and you're like, that was my stellar self, don't use it, because people are going to meet you and they're like, I don't know who this person is because I want that person from the picture, not you. So be who you are, proud of what you are, put yourself in the best light. They're doing great things now, with filters and all sorts of things. But it's really nice, as a professional, generally, you're gonna meet somebody and you see them on like I find for myself as a real estate lawyer, corporate lawyer, that people, when they're gonna work with me, they first thing they look is LinkedIn. They search me out on LinkedIn, they read my resume, they read my bio. So for all of us out there, if whatever we're doing and we're thinking we're interacting with the public, just as a marketing note, get a LinkedIn profile, put a current picture, put yourself in the best light, best angles, and people will just flock and want to work with you. So that's me. And you can scan the the Q card, and you can download my contacts, and I'll go straight into your address book. So message me and say, "Hey, lawyer, I need you." So just a little, I have to do this every time, sorry, buddy, and then we'll get into the presentation. Just as far as whenever you're working with a lawyer, always note, and even like, from a real estate point of view, it's funny, Jessica, as a realtor, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a realtor that sent me a client, right? And then all of a sudden that client comes back to me a year later, but they're working with a different realtor. And I'm like, why didn't you go back to the original realtor? And they're like, oh, because I was buying a condo and I bought with them a house. I didn't think they do condos. Oh, I bought with them in a different area. So, let's say you're doing a Thornhill condo with Jessica. If you're going to go buy a house in Ajax, guess what? You can still work with Jessica. It's so funny. And so from my end of things, I also, when I'm working with the client from one end, I always like them to know, once you have a relationship with a professional, if you need them for other avenues, think about them. Don't go to somebody else if you have that relationship already. So we help. So when you're doing real estate and we're talking about those joint ventures, very often you're talking about contracts, joint venture agreements. Very common now, people like to incorporate companies. So Jessica and I are going to go buy a house together, but we don't want to put in our personal names. So all of a sudden, we'll open up a company. We will purchase the property in the company, but I don't even own the shares. My holding company owns the shares, and Jessica's holding company owns the shares. So we're doing 3 corporations plus a real estate deal. So it's nice when the same lawyer can do all. When you're going to be property owners in the future, you have to start putting on your big boy and big girl pants, and start thinking about, I need a will. I need RSPs, you got to start thinking about these things. You have to talk to a financial advisor and an insurance person, start planning out your life. Real estate starts the threshold to many other things. So you got to plan all those. And from our end, we do wills and power of attorneys, because you have a person that goes to purchase a property and then God forbid, they're in an accident, and now who's going to deal with that property? That's why we create powers of attorney. So in a lot of the things in planning for business, it's not just one isolated item. It'll make you think about other things, but don't make you scared about real estate. It means good. This is the foundation now that I can do all the things and really set up my life as well. People purchasing properties together, those happy unmarried couples, they're saying, maybe we'll get married one day, but let's buy a property together. But let's not put anything down on paper because we love each other. So we're totally cool. So they're never going to be an issue. You may want to think about something called a cohabitation agreement. So again, pre-planning, money and romance don't always flow well together. And I just say this tongue in cheek, I like to joke around. I hope for a career as a stand-up comedian one day, but it doesn't work out. I'm going to stay as a lawyer. But all kidding aside, I can't tell you how many times I've had siblings, best friends, and guess what happens? They do an investment with money together. They don't put it down on paper. then the S hits the fan, and now we got to fix it. So when everybody is good and everybody's excited, it's not to offend somebody. It's like, let's put down on a piece of paper what our expectations are. If we have to put in more money, who's going to put in the money? And if we're going to collect money, who's going to do that? And if somebody wants to get out of this deal, how do we do that? So we put everything ahead of time as much as we can. So then there's less fighting and less issues because we already pre-planned this stuff. So that's the kind of the idea behind why we do contracts. And we cover many different areas because they all are actually related to real estate at the end of the day. Welcome to the year 2022. You remember the days when we used to go to boardrooms and sign up and, oh, I need to sign my real estate transaction and my house is in Ajax, so I got to hire an Ajax lawyer. Wrong. So now what do we do is we meet over the computer like we're doing right now. I would be texting you a link on your cell phone. You'd open it up. And just like, like you're at a bank and you're like signing on the dotted line on that screen, it would be on your phone. So I can close as a real estate lawyer a deal anywhere in Ontario. And you could be in Panama and I could be in Iceland, and we're still meeting the same way, closing properties in Ontario. So from that end of it, the future is now for real estate and for lawyers specifically. So very few clients ever see the inside of my offices anymore. But if you were curious, we do have our office in Toronto, Mississauga, Markham. We're also up in Cottage Country. So for those people that love the water and thinking, you know what, I'm really excited about my first property. And then in the future, maybe I want to have a cottage, or maybe the cottage is going to be your first property. Very important to think of what kind of property you're going to own and what you're going to do, and making sure you got those right professionals that you're working with. The realtor, the lawyer, the mortgage broker, the accountant. These are the 4 people that are going to make your lives really, really easy. Are you buying a vacant piece of land and you're going to build? Are you going to be tearing down a house and building? Are you going to live on the water? Are you going to live in a condo? The professionals can walk you through these things, tell you the pros and cons, things to consider, and then you make your list of what you want to do with your life, and we help you make your dreams come true. Right, Jess?
You got it.
As you've already heard, and I know you've seen it on the internet, and you're just clamoring down like, I got to get into this podcast. I got to see what's going on here. The Chosen Life podcast is happening. So from our... In Kormans, it's funny. We have our YouTube channel. So our law firm is Kormans LLP. We have 2 podcasts. One is my partner, David, and he has a podcast called David and David on Real Estate, where they're talking about all sorts of real estate issues, like the kind of stuff we're talking about now. So when you can't sleep at night and you're like, I need something to help me relax and go to sleep, and I want to feel assured knowing about things relating to real estate, that's the podcast for you. So you want to hear about tax issues in real estate, how budgeting in real estate happens, how does a home inspector work? They got all those kind of people on there. Go on David and David, learn some real estate and have a good time. On the Chosen Life podcast, basically, we just don't talk about law and we don't talk about COVID, but we talk about everything else as far as, so I bring on professionals from different walks of life. And it actually ends up, it's funny, the thing, even though I don't talk about what I do, if you notice different professionals in all sorts of areas, how we all have similar mindsets as far as setting goals, working together as a team, customer service, how we service people, how we think. But anyways, that's a Chosen Life. I bring people from all sorts of arenas. I've had a professional baseball player, boxer, wrestler. So if you want to get to see that side of things when you're on Kormans, feel free to take a look and subscribe to our channel. And it's much appreciated. And of course, we're on all social medias. So now that the infomercial is done, and I always promise my marketing person I will do it because she gives me crap if I don't. Today, we are talking about first-time buyers and the pleasures and the scariness. And the job is today to take that scariness out, because I really believe that people that are not buying real estate and they're afraid, it's the fear of the unknown. They're like, okay, so I'm renting right now. So all I got to do is pay my rent check and my life is easy. I don't have to think about anything. But then those same people come back 10 years later. I don't own anything. I have all these friends that bought real estate. All of them seem to have gone up and their places are worth a lot more. And now they have more financial freedom. And I'm left holding the bag because I kept my life simple. It's not that complicated to own real estate. And it's actually really fun because you have ownership in something. It gives you the incentive to work harder, build something, maybe taking your existing place once you buy it and renting it out to somebody and buying a different place, maybe selling your place, upgrading. You have so many options. And, there's always degree of risk for sure. But You live and learn as you go along with it. But everybody I know that started from a young age, even if they had ups and downs, real estate is like this. It goes like this, but it eventually goes up. So even the ups and downs are still higher than where you were, years ago. So those, I can't tell how many people came to me in like 2007, 2008, when the US market was crashing and said, man, I really, really wish that I would have invested in real estate. I really wish I would. Thank you very much. I got a patty delivery here. Sorry. So they really, really wish they would have, done something back then, but they said the US economy is crashing. So you know what? Maybe I should hold off and maybe we're going to crash the same way. So this was like December 2007 to like February, March 2008. And what happened? We shot up and we continued to shoot up. And they're saying, well, what about like, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago? Folks, we never did this. We did this. We stabilized. Maybe we did, and then this, So all those people that waited and waited and waited, they are crying. I remember when I was looking at King City back in 2008, and like, who would live in King City? But I have a good feeling about it. Well, if I would have bought King City in 2008, anything, I would be laughing. People that said, I'm paying outrageous prices for Toronto 3 years ago are all laughing now because they're like, wow, I was so smart. So when the market is good, it's funny, everybody seems like a genius. But as soon as there's a correction, which everybody's expecting it, but we've been saying this for over a decade, it's a question of how much of a correction, and that's where, if you buy and sell in the same market at the end of the day, let's say whatever you bought, and then you saying, I bought in the high market, and oh, wow, 3 years later, it's gone down. Guess what? Whatever you're going to buy, when you sell, it's going to gone down too. That's why the secret is to buy and sell in the same market, but to get in as soon as you can. And that's the logic from a business sense. This is not me giving business advice or legal advice. This is just what I've seen with clients over and over and over. So from that end of it, in your mind, if you're like, I'm going to hold off because I want to make sure I can get it for cheaper, or I want to make sure because I'm not really certain, start speaking to the professionals. Get the account, like I said, the lawyer, the realtor, your financial advisor. Start crunching, make budgets, business plan, and see on paper and say, wow, okay, now I get it. So it's not so bad. The scariness of it is when you don't know. As a lawyer, I tell people my job is not to be a lawyer. My job is to make your life easy. I take the BS in your life and just make it really simple. And so I'm going to explain to you, and you're not sure, you reach out to me, and for most things it's fixable, but just, stay in communication. So that's why, again, you go to the professionals that can help walk you through it. The people that say, I'm going to go and I see a for sale by owner sign and I'm just going to do it by myself. And I'm sure I'm going to get a mortgage because I know I'm good. If you don't pre-plan this stuff, your life could be very, very difficult. You say, wow, I thought that was really cheap for sale by owner, but for that money, I could have bought a lot more if a realtor would have just shown me that, or I thought I could get a mortgage and I thought my income, I can easily afford a $2-3 million mortgage. Well, that may not be the case. That's why we pre-check this stuff. Buying real estate is the biggest investment of your life. It's the biggest purchase you're going to have, but yet I know people that take more time picking out their car than they do picking out their house. And especially the first time buyers, they just fall in love with something. They see a picture of it. They're like, I need this right away in my life. Done. If they just done a little bit of research, if they sat down with their agent, said, okay, what is my criteria in life? What's important for me? And start planning it out on paper, it needs to make sense without that visual, falling in love. Because my experience has been, especially the first time buyers, the quicker they rush into a transaction, the quicker they want out of the transaction. But on the same token, you can't research for your whole life. You can be spending 5 years researching and you'll never get the quote unquote perfect house. So just try to get as much information as you can, see it for yourself, look at the pictures, go into properties, you get a feeling for it. And at some point it'll start to make sense. Financing, I can't emphasize enough. Make sure you have that in place, please, before everything else. Can't tell you how much of a waste of time life is when you go to put an offer on something and you just can't afford to buy it. Like, I want a Bugatti. I would definitely enjoy driving a Bugatti, but I don't think I can really get the Bugatti right now. And if I went to put a deposit on one and I said, you know what, my bank will give me a loan, no problem. I don't think the bank would give me $1 million towards the Bugatti. So, got to think ahead that way. And that's where realistic expectations and coming up with solutions. So for young buyers a lot, if you are in a couple relationship, 2 incomes, that could help. If you're siblings, friends, whatever. But a lot of what I'm seeing is the bank of mom and dad, bank of mom and dad, best bank there could be, interest-free loans, gifts, free money, guaranteeing mortgages. There's potentially a lot of options. And you don't want to ever strain that relationship, but just enough people are doing that. That certainly, there's always a thing where there's options. Like when you go, let's say, for example, you have a daughter and dad, okay? And daughter can't sustain the mortgage. She has the down payment. She can afford the payments, but she just can't get that mortgage. Well, her and dad don't have to go on at owning them 50-50. She could own 99% of the property and dad could own 1%. Putting dad on is just that 1% will allow them to get that mortgage, will allow her to get going into the system. And then maybe 5 years from there, when it's time to refinance, she has enough history that then she could take that off. All you have to do is remove 1%. It's a lot easier. So again, there's always options. That's the kind of stuff that you can talk about with me, talk about with your accountant, and we can figure out solutions. So usually if there's a will, there's a way, but you have to be realistic on it. Do I have the down payment? Can the bank finance this? Speak to a really good mortgage broker, start getting your money in order. If the money's there, everything else is easy in life. Just cannot emphasize that enough. And on a lot of our properties as first-time buyers, like you're going to go buy a 600 square foot condo, you're going to get property insurance. It's not very complicated. The way, you go with TD Milashmonics or wherever you're using for your car insurance, you're going to get yourself house insurance. And so, God forbid if there's a flood, if somebody, has an injury in there, you have some forms of insurance for that. When you start getting into properties, depends on the property. Like you could have it that you're buying a cottage property, like I said, a vacant piece of land that you're building on. Maybe you're very, very ambitious. Making sure we have that insurance time is very, very important because generally we cannot get a mortgage unless we have our property insurance. So be careful with it. The other thing I notice a lot with first-time buyers, the scrambling, the leaving things. And I didn't know I'm a first-time buyer. I didn't know. Well, we sent you an opening letter outlining the steps. Oh, I didn't read it. Well, that's you. You got people are sending you information, you're professionals. Open up those emails, read those emails, even just the bullet points in bolding, they will really do you a lot of good because you really have to understand the process. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You're hiring people. Don't feel bad. Ask them. I'm confused. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I just signed an offer to purchase a property. My agent's been awesome. What the heck am I doing now? Make sure you're professional, whoever you're hiring. They walk you through from everything, from the second you send them that agreement to the second you're living in the house and what we got to do. Write that stuff down. Make yourself notes. Diarize yourself timelines. And then your life is so easy. Honestly, you'll know in most things you got to do like 7 or 10 steps, and they're usually not that bad. But they're bad when you don't know what you're supposed to do. And then you contact the lawyer and it's a week to go to closing. And they're like, we want to schedule your appointment, but we don't have your mortgage instructions. Oh, I'm still shopping for the best rate. I love that one. Don't you love that one, Jess?
Jay, I have a question for you. What are some of the things that people forget to do when you're talking about scrambling? Like, what have you noticed, say, in the past year or so?
Numero uno is not having the mortgage set up properly. Like literally not understanding that 0.001% is not going to save you very much money over 5 years, and getting the firm commitment, because when you sign with your mortgage rep, the mortgage just doesn't happen automatically. They got to send their papers to the head office. The head office has to process a bunch of stuff. Might take a week till it goes to the lawyer, with the lawyer getting instructions, and the lawyer's office has to start preparing the actual documents. So getting their mortgage stuff in order, ABC, that's the biggest issue. Number two, being oblivious to the fact that they owe money at the end of the transaction. So not budgeting whatsoever. What do you mean I got to pay land transfer tax? What do you mean I got to pay you? And we send an opening letter and we put down like an idea of the budgeting and things, and still not doing that. And it saddens me when people work with an unprofessional realtor that doesn't walk them through an idea of a budget of what they have to look for. When they have an accountant that does not walk them through that, when the lawyer doesn't walk them through that. But but if they don't ask those questions or retain those people on time, if you wait till the last minute, like you're saying, I'm gonna own a property now, but I don't need an accountant. I've always done my own taxes, so I don't need to think about tax issues and planning and stuff. I don't need a financial planner. You know what? I can deal with insurance stuff and everything in the future. Never mind life insurance. And God forbid something happens to me, who's going to pay off my mortgage, not retaining the professionals, then not asking the questions, and then leaving that stuff all to the last minute, like buying a house and the day before, okay, yeah, I'll just call and get my insurance now, and not realizing that property insurance may not happen in 1 hour, little detail stuff like that. Actually just going to the bank and putting their monies together. Like they have money locked into their RSPs and investments. Okay, your closing date is July 30th. If you take it out July 25th, sitting for 5 days, not collecting the interest, 0.001%, take the money out, having it ready, And so really it's just that budgeting, having a rough idea, and you don't have to know it to the penny. People, if you think you have to calculate it to the penny, then you got a big problem. You need buffer money. You better say, I'm buying a $500,000 property, and then here's my land transfer tax and all that. Overestimate everything, and right away know 10, 20,000 bucks. I just need it off to the side, because who knows what's going to happen in life. You don't want to be a point that you're literally scrimped to the last dollar, and then you buy the property, and then you have to pay any kind of expense, and you don't have that money, and you're already dipping into lines of credit. So those kind of things I find are the biggest issues.
So Jonathan, say for example, we have someone first-time home buyer. Let's paint this scenario. They just reached out to a realtor, and they want to start. They're in the preliminary stages of purchasing a home. What would you suggest that they do when it comes to getting in touch with a real estate lawyer? Should they be reaching out to them prior to even going up to look at homes, just so that they start building a relationship? What do you find works best in order to ensure that these people are having a smooth sailing journey?
Great segue to the next slide. And she didn't know this was coming. Thank you, Jessica. Step number 1, mortgage is ready to go. That's step 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. Get your mortgage in line. So we can go look at properties and fantasize and daydream by all means. That's all good. Get an idea of what my dollar is going to carry me and all that. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to see like 3-4 properties, and you're going to see that one property. And you're like, I'm never going to find another one like this. And it's on that street I've always dreamt of. And they're holding offers tomorrow. We'd be stupid not to pay them $300,000 over asking. We must have this property at all costs. Fine. So let's go pay $300,000, $500,000 over asking. And then when your bank is going to take a look at your offer, they're going to say, we're going to send somebody called an appraiser, and they're going to value what the property is really worth. And if you fell in love with the property and paid whatever you felt like it, doesn't mean that we're going to be giving you money, that kind of money. So let's say the bank values it at $1 million and you paid 1.4 mil. They're giving you 80% on the 1 million. So you got to come up with the 400,000. Not everybody has liquid 400,000 sitting around. You can check under your couch, you can check in the backseat of your car. Probably not there. That's a lot of money for most people. And what happens is they had to go in with a firm offer because there was 20 offers on the property. So the seller already said, if you're putting any conditions in there, don't worry, it's not going to happen. So don't even bother. So they went and bought a property with no financing condition, no home inspection clause. They're not handy people. They're just, they're two professionals in an office, and they're saying, well, the house looks good to me. It looks like good bones to me. So again, we'd be stupid not to buy this house. And then they come to me afterwards and they're like, okay, I can't afford this property now because I'm not getting a mortgage. And I found a bunch of stuff wrong with the house. The seller has to fix this, right? Nope. So how could this be avoided? Well, number 1, make sure you have your mortgage in order. So if we know how much we can afford, we have a pretty good idea. It'd still be good to have a clause in there for a mortgage financing, or at the very least, you can do a clause saying that you need it for the appraisal purpose only, but have an idea. Speak with your banking rep, speak with your agent. Your agent knows the area. They could show you comparables and saying, okay, a lot of stuff's been going for around this price. We're good. You're breaking new waters here. This area has never seen this kind of price. You have to be cautious with it. That's all. So once we get the mortgage, life is much simpler. Then we go to find the right place, and then we put the offer in. And then we decide, Do we get a home inspection? Do we not get a home inspection? Does the seller have a home inspection? Is that okay? I have a lot of clients that are first-time buyers, and what they do is they contact me. They do call me ahead of time, and they'll say, before I put this offer in, because I'm a first-time buyer, and I'll tell you the truth, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can I go ahead with this? And that's what I'll tell them. Okay, you spoke to your agent, but are you going to put a conditional clause in there? Will they accept it? Have you considered this? Have you considered that? So we walk through the options, and so from the legal side, what the contract says in there, they can feel a lot better saying, okay, I feel more secure now of what I'm doing. So that's where, again, working with professionals, getting things set up. And like I mentioned before, asking those right questions. But if you don't have the money in place, everything else will fall apart. And I've seen this way too many times. And in the future, when you do own a property and you decide in the future that I want to sell my property and buy another property, please do not schedule those closing dates on the same day. That is the world's worst thing that you can do. When I put a blog entry, which you can check on kormans.ca, and you can see worst days to close my real estate transaction. Number one is close my purchase and my sale on the same day. You don't want to do that to yourself. Get a bridge mortgage, buy your property, close it, paint it, get your cleaning crew in there, move your furniture slowly. Life is very easy, and then close your sale. It's a really, really bad thing when your sale doesn't close. So that means your purchase can't close, or your money's coming late from your mortgage and your stuff is on the truck and you can't get into your property, and now you're stuck and you don't know what to do. So I would really try to avoid those things. I don't want to scare people, but especially things have changed with mortgages. Monies do not come very quickly. Mortgages do not come easily, no matter how high your credit score is, no matter how great the equity is in the property. Mortgages don't happen overnight. That's why everything I'm going to emphasize as a real estate lawyer, make sure you get your mortgages set up ahead of time.
Jay, may I ask you a question?
Shoot.
So you mentioned going in firm, which is what we're seeing happening right now in the seller's market that we're in, right? So
absolutely.
What if someone goes in firm and they have to go and deliver their deposit? And this is happening late at night. It's 11 p.m. They wake up and they're like, holy crap, what did I just do? They're like, I don't want to proceed. Like, there's no way. Like I slept on it and there's no way. What could happen at that point?
Do you want the best story ever?
If you can teach us through the story, absolutely.
So I was teaching with Aria before George Brown took over, and I used to teach the Aria law course, the property law course. So I was teaching real estate agents about real estate law, and all they ever wanted to hear was stories. So here's the story. It's Friday night, and there's a realtor, and she wants to buy a house for herself. Okay, so she's a realtor, and she's been a realtor for 20 years. Okay, so she's been around the block. And she decides, since it's my property, I don't feel comfortable for me to do the offer. I'm asking my best friend. I want him to do the offer for me. And he says to her, it's 11 o'clock at night. Are you serious? And this was not in a crazy hot market. She's like, I have to have this house. You don't understand. Please, I'm begging you. So he goes, okay, you're sure? And yes, I have the experience. I know. Give me the house. So 11, negotiate to 1 in the morning. She's got the house. Okay. Firm offer. Paid over asking, life is good. She got the house she wanted, okay? Next day, so excited. I want to bring my family. So excited to show them the new house. And I can't wait till I get this house, my dream home. I'm good. Then Saturday afternoon, I get the call as the real estate lawyer. I need to get out of this deal immediately. I said to her, why? I just can't close on this house. Why? Because I just can't. I can't. I gave the deposit, and you have to get me out of this house because I rushed in as quickly as possible. So I need to rush out as much as possible. You don't understand. And this friend, he's the worst friend in the world. How dare he make me sign those papers at 11:30 and 12 o'clock? He should have known better. He should have known that it was too late at night. Not a good friend. He should have let me do this. So you see where this friendship's going, by the way, right? I said to her, okay, so I'm going to level with you on something. I don't have idiot written across my forehead. So you're going to tell me why you're not closing on this property, or else I'm not going to help you. So there is a reason why. So what is wrong with the house? There's nothing wrong with the house. I just, trust me, not good realtor. I don't feel, you're going to have to tell me why, because you're going to be, a judge is going to ask you if this thing goes to court. Anyways, 20 minutes of prodding. The house is haunted, and I cannot live in a haunted house. And I said, why is the house haunted. How did you see the ghost? Like, was it like Casper or something? It was like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I went into the master bedroom and I felt the spirits and I had to get out of that house immediately. Turns out, in fact, that unfortunately her father had a heart attack, I believe, or an uncle or somebody that morning. So she felt that that was all related to the house and I need to get out of the deal. These are the real life examples of things that people come up with. Why? So I told her it'd be a lot cheaper for you to get a shaman and to have an exorcist into the master bedroom, and you can take out all the drywall and the carpet, redo the room, and that'll give you a fresh room. But I'm telling you, you cannot get out of this deal, because what's going to happen is the seller's going to sue you. They're going to keep your deposit, which, by the way, was like, I don't know, like $75,000 or $100,000. So it wasn't chump change. And they're going to resell the property. And if they lose money and they have to carry the property, they're going to sue you for something called damages. So you don't want that. So your options are to go to court and deal with this, or we're going to try and negotiate the best deal we can for you. Anyways, we negotiated the best deal we could for her, and she lost her deposit, which is a lot of money. So on one day's work of stupidity, of rushing into something, which it is stupidity, sorry, lost that money. And I told her, you need to just close, sit on this property, and sell it in a year. I don't care what you got to do with this. The way real estate's going, it's looking like it's only going to go up. This is a really bad mistake, because the seller's going to say that there's a potential for them to lose money, because nobody can predict what's going to happen. But I'm telling you, this is not a good idea. And she was so happy to give up the deposits, because she thought, no, they're going to get me for more money. I need certainty. I didn't like it. So I wrote her a letter saying, I don't like this. Don't do this. What ended up happening? Seller pockets the money, resells the property for more money, and is laughing all the way to the bank. So that's a real life example of what could happen in the worst case scenario, and when you don't listen to your professionals. So you don't want to encounter that. So even if you didn't get the deposit, I've had people, Jessica, that said to me, well, I didn't get the deposit yet, so that means I'm not locked in, right? Wrong. When you sign a purchase agreement, next to your name has a little thing, says a seal. What does that mean? Well, back in the day, they used to do this like ring thing, in like old times, right? What that's saying is the consideration. So I agree to buy your property. I put a deposit. You're going to give me the property. Even if I didn't put down the deposit, the fact that I signed my name under seal is good enough to be considered if I gave consideration. Translation, you're asking me in English, Jonathan, what the heck does this mean? It means something like this. If you didn't put your deposit down and the seller sues you, they can get the deposit out of you, even if you didn't put it down. So you holding back the deposit means nothing. You signed that agreement and you did not get the deposit, but it's a firm deal, you're on the hook. And what does that mean? Damages? Well, let's say the market tanked all of a sudden for a period, and all of a sudden for 3 months, they introduced a new thing from the government and nobody knew what was going on. So for 3 months, nothing happened. During that 3 months, the seller couldn't sell it, had to dump the property, took a big hit, and they had to sell for 2 months after they were supposed to close it with you. Now they have to carry the property for a little that extra time, carry their mortgage, property tax. You're on the hook for all those expenses. So what does that mean at the end of the day? Just think it through, make the best decision you can. Don't rush into something. And the more you think about it, the more you talk to professionals and have a game plan, the easier life is and the less likely it's going to happen. That's all.
So that's on the resale end of things, right? How about if we're talking about purchasing a pre-construction property? What happens at that point if someone purchases and then they have to contact a lawyer? What happens at that point, Jonathan?
Okay, very good question, Jessica, as well. And please don't take me at all as being sarcastic or what be it. It's nighttime, so this is different than we do a 12 p.m. one. We've all had a long day, so let's have fun with it, So I'm saying it all tongue in cheek and trying to entertain, but I enjoy it, and I enjoy making jokes about it because it is funny, but there is a serious side to it. But just understanding the rationale of what could happen. Because I'm telling you, I've done this for 20 years. So I got called to the bar in 2002. I've closed, I don't know how many thousands of transactions at this point. And when you guys contact me, if something goes wrong, I've seen already hundreds of these. I've been through them a million times. So I know. Pre-construction, misconception, biggest one, the cooling off period. So everybody seems to think that I buy a new property, a new construction property, that as long as I say I want to get out of it in 10 days, I can get out of it no matter what. Jessica, true or false?
You tell us. You're going to share a story with us?
No, but it's funny. So okay, I can tell you a story, but the story goes like this. And I studied this in law school, so I always found that I only paid majorly attention to real estate law. I didn't pay as much attention in the other course because I always knew I'd be a real estate lawyer. So I was like hanging on every word. I loved it. Like they told us about in England how there was lawsuits over the cricket field and the neighbors with the cricket and all this, and Lord Denning and all this, and I just love that stuff. So real life example was like this. So back in the day, believe it or not, people used to go door to door selling vacuum cleaners. And people would get so enticed by the salesman for the vacuum cleaner, they're like, oh my God, I have to have that vacuum cleaner. And what they realized, and when they go to court, is like, oh, that salesman was so smooth. And then when they left, I'm like, oh, I regret it. I don't really want that vacuum cleaner. That's not fair. You know, that was pressure tactics. So what the court said was, you have a 10-day cooling period that in the 10 days, you decide, you know what, I don't want to keep that vacuum cleaner. You should be allowed to give it back, even if the contract says nothing about giving it back. Little segue to condos, believe it or not. So why am I bringing this up? Who cares about vacuum cleaners? Well, there was something called the 1980s. And in the 1980s, if you look it up in your history books, I was very young back then, but I wasn't alive, sorry. So what happened was the whole construction boom started with condos. They're like, ooh, condos, these are the greatest things ever. And I want to own 4 or 5 of them. By the way, if you bought those condos in 1980 and you held on to them now, you'd be laughing. But back then, what happened was something called recessions, if you've ever heard of those, and something called stock market crashes. And so people lining up to buy 4 or 5 condos because they're the smartest people in the world, and this is the new fad, and I'm going to buy it and all that. All of a sudden, they're like, oh boy, they were slick salespeople, and I can't afford it. I can't buy this many. The market's crashed in the last 2 days. What am I going to do? So the court said the same way with the vacuum salesman, if you want to get out of your condo deal, new construction, you can in the first 10 days, even if the contract says nothing about it. It's called a cooling off period, not 10 business days, 10 days. So you sign it on Monday, go 1, 2, 3. And that's how you know what your 10 days is. Okay. So start on Monday, Tuesday's 1 day. Okay. Monday to Tuesday. So, and I get asked that a lot, Jessica. You'd be shocked how many people don't know what 10 days means. So I have to walk them through this. Why am I telling you this? Because you may go buy a new construction house. And if you remember anything at this seminar, besides the fact that you make sure you get a mortgage and hire the right professionals, it's this. You go sign a contract to go buy a new construction house. Make sure you're going with your agent, put a clause in there that says lawyer review condition. That gives me the opportunity as a lawyer, the same way I would have during the cooling off period on a condo, to review the agreement, write to the builder's lawyer and say, hey, I read this, but here's the things that I'd like you to take off and change and blah, blah, blah. Or if you want to get out of the deal, it gives you the opportunity because I tell you the deal and you're like, I don't like it. I want out of this deal. Fine. It happens. Can't tell you how many people bought new construction houses and tell me, okay, now it's time to negotiate. I'm like, there's time to negotiate squat right now because you never put a lawyer review clause. So they don't have to do that. And they're like, well, ask for it anyways. I ask for it. The builder says, well, there's no review clause. And they agreed to pay that much. So I want my money. So I'm just going to take the money and I'm not going to give you anything and you better close. That's what happens when you buy a new construction house. So make sure there's a lawyer review clause in there, period. Because when you buy new construction, the way it works versus resale, I want to go buy a resale condo. I go down to, I live in Thornhill, so I always bring up Thornhill right now, but I go down to Bathurst and Clark and I look at 7460 Bathurst and I want to buy a 30-year-old condo there and I'm really happy. It just got renovated. When I agree to pay $600,000, it's $600,000. The end. All I'm going to add to that is my land transfer tax, my lawyer, my title insurance. I'm done. When you go buy a new construction condo, the ones building behind the Promenade Mall, for example, and you go sign that 50, 70-page agreement with the builder, the cost is not just the cost of new construction. There's a whole bunch of extras that they put on. So when you don't bring it to a lawyer to review and tell your agent, I'm okay, don't worry about it. And then all of a sudden you go to sign, you're like, oh boy, there's $30,000 more in extras here. I don't have $30,000. Well, should have asked the lawyer about that, so because we can walk you through it. To understand, like, there's a big difference between buying a new condo versus a new house for costings wise. There's a big difference between buying a downtown Toronto condo versus a Hamilton condo. Because believe it or not, the more you go out of the GTA, the lower the costs seem to be all of a sudden, because it's more competitive out there and they know people don't want to pay those costings. So these are the kind of things we'd explain to you, because at the end of the day, you make your decision of what works for you. I want to buy it as an investment. I want to buy it because I want to live there. But we need to walk you through again as budgeting wise, so you know, I have an idea at least ballparkish when I close, how much money I need to prepare for, and does it make sense? So new construction has big agreements, and to not go with a realtor, I think is very foolish, because the sales office is going to tell you, yeah, everything's standard. Don't worry about it. Just sign. Everybody's signing. It's all good. You're just so lucky you can get to buy from us. You go with your realtor, they could tell them, what about development levies? Have you kept that? What about assignments? Are you allowing assignments? Are you capping that? What's going on? They know, they dealt with this, so they can advocate for you, because otherwise nobody's advocating for you. And the sales office telling you, yeah, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. Don't worry. Yeah, you'll get that on closing. And also you come to closing and that upgrade they promised you is not there. And the lowering of the cost is not there. And then when we asked the builder, they're like, oh, no, you misunderstood. They never would have said that, you know? Your agent would get that in writing. So another misconception on pre-construction, don't go at it alone. If you're going for a resale, bring your agent for the new construction. They can advocate for you. They can get you a better deal. They can help you understand the different layouts and how the builder works and how the process works. And then you come to the lawyer and we help lower the cost and make sure whatever your expectations are for the property, we can make that happen. So without talking what's on the slides, that's part of what we do as professionals. And that's how new construction works. So it's a much, I don't want to say scary process, but there's a lot more steps with new construction. Certainly there's a lot more costings. And especially in new construction condos, I don't know how many of you have even looked at this, but like there's usually two closings on that. It's usually one called an occupancy, where you're paying money every month to the builder because they can get you in there to live, but you don't own it yet. It's like a rental period almost. And then when final closing happens, that's when you get your mortgage and you own it. So there could be multiple steps with new construction. And what I'm seeing right now more than ever is what's called assignment deals. So people can't find inventory. There's nothing to buy out there. So someone like Jessica will speak to somebody in her office, because they're not allowed to advertise it on the MLS in the most part. Oh, I have a client that has a contract to buy from this builder, but they don't want to close. Do you have a client that wants to take over the contract? That's called an assignment. So finding creative ways to find properties that nobody else has. But when you're a first-time buyer and you have no experience in real estate whatsoever, and now you're going to go buy somebody else's contract and have many, many closings because you're doing multiple parties, that could be very, very overwhelming. It's overwhelming to just do your first one, let alone make a complicated type transaction. And again, having the right people in place to explain this to you, you can maybe get a better deal, get a property you couldn't get otherwise, and feel comfortable with what you did.
Awesome. Thanks. Sorry for taking you off track, but I thought those would be important things to address.
My life is just off track. I should be the off track lawyer, because it's funny. Like I tell a story, people ask me a question, and I start telling another story, and they're like, where's he going with this? Like, it's a merry-go-round. But believe it or not, when we get there to the end, there is a point, because the stuff is so interrelated. So
speaking of condos, talk to us about these status certificates.
So point number one there, people often say, what the heck do you do as a real estate lawyer? Like, what am I paying for? And I'm like, well, first of all, you're actually not paying that much relatively. So I'm not a litigation lawyer where I start charging people per hour. Like when you hire a litigation lawyer, they're billing by the 6-minute point. Let's say you talk to them for like 10 minutes, it goes by 0.6, so that they'll count out as 2 minutes. There's 2 points because they'll round it off. It's amazing. And people who are dealing with the litigation lawyer, with a family law lawyer, and they're like, oh wow, every phone call, every email I got charged for. And then when they deal with me and I do a flat fee, they're like, whoa, that's amazing. But then they still ask me, what the heck do you do? Why do I have to pay for you? So I guess this is like our slide of justifying our existence of what the heck we are and who we are. So status certificates. So many of you are going to, as first-time buyers, very likely look at resale condos and think to yourself, like, that's a good thing for me because I can afford it. Much more economical for me than buying a home right now. And I'm paying these monthly fees, I know, but then I don't have to deal with the outside of the building. I could just come and go. Like for a young professional, condos are awesome. No shoveling snow, roof collapses, whatever. Let the condo corp take care of that. You just take care of your little inside and life is amazing, But for some people, they're like, I don't want to be in elevators with people. I want to be able to bring my groceries in and out the door. I want to have a backyard, So there's trade-offs, It's not that simple. Sometimes there's houses which are basically detached and freehold, but the way it was built, you're still paying a condo fee, but all you're paying for is for the roadway and garbage removal. Otherwise, it's completely yours. So that's called a podol, a parcel of tied land, where it's yours, but you're sharing common areas with people. So there's all sorts of type of properties out there. Even those have what's called a status certificate. So if you're thinking, I want to buy a condo of some sorts, whether it's a townhouse condo, a high-rise condo, a podol, there's going to be a condition I put in there, generally called a status certificate condition. And these kind of markets right now, what's happening is, and I had one today, I get the call at 5:30 from the agent. We're putting an offer in at 7 p.m. It's got to be firm. The listing agent just gave us the status certificate. Can you review it in a few seconds? No, we cannot review it in a few seconds. It's 20 documents in there. It takes at least an hour, and we have to review multiple stuff. And if you want us to do it properly, make sure, give us enough time with it. From my firm's point of view, I tell people, try to give me 24 hours, give or take, at least 12 hours if it's an extreme emergency. But why sellers are doing this, they don't want people to put a condition of status certificate and then find something wrong with it and just try to get out of it or try to get a price reduction. They're saying, I'm getting 20 offers. I want to know this thing's in the bag. So here's your status certificate. Knock yourself out. You want to put an offer in, put it in, but otherwise, I don't want to hear about it. So status certificate is a package of documents on the resale condos. We'll take that example of like a Bathurst and Clark condo, 30-year-old building, great. And what we do is we start. So first thing is like there's a letter, the status certificate letter, and that's like a 4 or 5 page summary. If you don't look at anything else, make sure you look at that. That's the one which tells you the unit number, the parking locker that comes with it. It tells you how much you're paying every month in common expenses. The common expenses is the amount that you pay to the condo corporation for the ability to live there. They take that money, they use it to run the day-to-day expenses of your condo building, how the lights are going, the elevator, the security guard. They hire lawyers, accountants, but also they're putting money away in what's called a reserve fund. So from the money you're paying every month to the condo, they take a portion of it, they put it in their reserve fund. So in case things go wrong in the future, they have money to pull from. They also know that there's going to be repairs and replacements that will come over time as the building ages. They hire a company to review the building, say the life expectancy of all the parts, when they think they're going to have to do repairs, when they're going to have to do replacements, and they make a budget out of that, and that comes from the reserve fund. So, not that it's going to be on the status certificate part of it, but if you're going to own a house yourself, you should create yourself your own reserve fund. You should know that I'm going to own a house, and over time, I'm going to have to do, plumbing. I'm going to have to do the roof. At some point, I'm going to have to change the front doors. I'm going to have to do my driveway. You should create yourself a little pool of money off to the side, so that on a rainy day, you have to do a few things. You're like, I'm not leveraged now. I don't have to go and get a line of credit. I don't have to go and refinance myself. So the condo corp is saying, we put this money aside so that we don't have to raise your common expenses too much every month. Because once a year, they assess where their budgeting is at, and they decide, here's how much money did we take in from all the residents, and how much did it cost us to run this thing, and do we have enough money? And inevitably, the common expenses always go up. If they went up by like 2% to 5%, that's pretty good. But some buildings, they go up 10% or more. When they sell new construction condos, they always undervalue how much money the common expenses are, because they're selling to the public, hey, look at us, we're so cheap. It's $300 a month in common expenses. And people are like, yeah. And then they come in and reality hits, oh, it costs a lot more to run this thing. And I guess we're going to have to raise your common expenses. So in the first 5 years, you can find they tend to go up more significant. In an older building of 10 plus years, generally they know their history. That's less likely to happen. The dreaded special assessment. Are they going to do a special assessment? So is there a problem with the plumbing in the building? Something called Kitech, where they had this kind of plumbing which leaks. Are they going to have to replace that? Who's going to pay for that? Is that coming out of the reserve fund? Are they going to charge us for it? Are they going to have to replace the roof and they don't have enough money for it? So instead of taking extra money every month, is the condo corp can say, listen, we did the numbers. We have a major thing going on, folks. So what we'll do is everybody's getting hit for the same amount based on the size of your unit. So they do percentage wise based on how big your unit is to the rest of the other units. And people this size unit are paying this amount. These people are paying that amount. And so you're getting hit one time with $1,000 this year or $6,000 or whatever. It's payable over this number of installments. They're refilling the money so that they don't have to raise how much you're paying every month one time because stuff happened. And then they'll hopefully never have to ask for it again. The good news is if you're buying a condo that showed a special assessment, that means they got it out of their system. The seller got to pay for it. So hopefully they don't have to do it again. But if you buy a building that shows 3 special assessment in 3 years, that should be a giant red flag. It means the property management's not doing their job. The accountant's not doing their job. The board of directors is not doing their job. And this is the kind of stuff we're looking for. So we're looking for the summary of how budgeting is going, how much money they got in the reserve put away, what the study shows. There's a study done every 3 years for the reserve fund and seeing how much money they should be taking in every year and what level they should be at. So we look at that. We look at the budget. How much money did the common expenses go up compared to last year? What are they expecting for the revenues and expenses? Are they running this thing as a business? A condo, when you live in your condo building, it's a business, okay? It's like every other business. Is like you owned a shoe store or a restaurant. How much revenues did we take in? How much money came in as income? How much money are we paying out? And is it balanced? The goal of the condo is not to make profit. It's not to lose money every year. So they should be able to budget so that whatever, hopefully they I guess estimated high. So at the end of the year, they're around the level of how much they expected. But inevitably with inflation, hydro goes up, costs go up, insurance goes up, and they come at the end of the year, listen, people, we had a budget and things came up and this ended up being more and that ended up being more. So we have to reconfigure our budget. Some condos say, well, guess what? Then we'll just take the money out of the reserve fund for now and just borrow it a little bit. We'll repay it later. And then all of a sudden there's a crappy reserve fund and they don't have enough money in the reserve fund. Like any building of any size, basically you need at least $1 million without blinking an eye. And a lot of buildings now, as they're bigger and they have a lot of amenities, guess what? If there's an indoor pool, that costs money, golf simulator, that costs money, and it comes from somewhere, you're all paying for it, whether you like it or not, and you don't think so. So your money that you're paying every month to the condo corp, that's helping fund all those amenities. And so some buildings have 7 million in the reserve fund. But when you see in the study that they are in a negative, they don't have any money in the reserve fund, that should be a giant red flag. It means they're going to have to replenish it real quick. It means big time special assessments are coming. I saw a special assessment, Jess, that every unit owner had to fork over 40 grand each. That's horrible. That's a lot of money. Imagine buying a condo and you said to yourself, oh my God, I have to put in $40,000. If you had taken it to a lawyer, we read through the reserve fund study, we saw the financial statement, we saw the budget, it was very glaring that this is a problem building. In this kind of market right now, okay, I know we love stories here. So I had a client going to buy in a building and they wanted me to review the documentation, the status certificate for that particular building. I came back to them and I said, do you want me to be honest with you? And they're like, yeah. Okay. They got infestation. They had to close off the garbage chutes because of cockroaches. There's bed bugs going around in the different units. There's like sinking foundational issues. I wouldn't let my dog live there, to be quite frank. So I don't think you want to live there. You know what? They're still buying it.
Get out of here. Where is this? Is this in Toronto?
We can't go there. It's one of those things.
Wow.
If you saw the area and you saw the price and you saw the area, you'd be like, yeah, like, is there bloodstains on the walls? Like, it's one of those kind of feelings, Wow.
Like and they're still moving forward. Are they buying this as an investment or for themselves to live in?
They actually want to live in there, believe it or not. And wow. And there are buildings, like there are still condo units in Toronto you can buy and like live for like 100,000, 150,000, but you're not going to feel so safe going at night. Like it's like I'm saying it tongue in cheek, but it's true. Like there's some areas, the crime rates, everything else, but like, I'm sorry, like besides that part of it, the infestation part of it, everything else, I don't know. I don't really want to live there. And the financials were crap. So we did walk them through it. We outlaid. I said, in my opinion, I would not buy this. My legal advice is do not buy this. And then they still want to go ahead. And I tell them, okay, despite my advice, why? Because at least they're going in with the eyes wide open. But most people would have run away from something like that in a second. And I've had people that were very scared about a condo. And, I love how they have, just their neighbor and their like cousin. And they're like, they told me that this is okay. And they told me that. And I'm like, what law school did they graduate from? And they're like, they're not. I'm like, exactly. So you're going to listen to your lawyer or you're going to listen to like your plumber on legal advice here, And I'm telling them what they think is scary is actually not that scary at all. It's very, very common. You're never going to find the perfect status certificate. You're never going to find the perfect unit. If you want to go buy the perfect condo unit, you're spending about $10 million. It doesn't work like that. Everything is always lacking in something. It's not going to have the perfect size room here. It's not going to have the perfect bathroom there. It's not going to have the perfect location here. You're always going to have to give on something. That's just the way it is. And I don't think status certificates are any different. It's just a matter of what you can stomach. New time buyers seem to not like any risk at all, but they also want to be in right now, and then they can't afford it. Well, if you want to pay for something less, and you're going to have to take it with some kind of warts, that's all. And we're just highlighting that for you. So that's a nutshell of what to be reviewing a status certificate, the same way we'd be reviewing a new condo purchase agreement or a new house purchase agreement and walking people through. Like I asked them, what's your intention? How are you going to close this? In what names? Are you going to live there? Are you planning to use this as investment? And depending on what you plan to do, it may look very, very different. We have to do certain planning. I may tell you, you're going to close this with you and your mom. Put your mom on the agreement immediately. Don't leave mom off the last minute because the builder may not agree to add her on. So that's why we got to plan these things in advance.
Lovely. Thank you.
My pleasure. So that's in far. So as far as what lawyers do, we review those kind of things. We talk about the agreement. So if we have the luxury of entering a purchase agreement and it's conditional on status certificate, it's great because then I can see the agreement. I can see the status, make sure all the information is correct. I can't tell you how many times people thought they're getting a locker, they're not getting a locker. Thought you're getting a parking, not getting a parking. Think they own the parking. In older buildings, you don't own the parking necessarily. It's called exclusive use. So the condo corp owns your parking spot, but by you owning that unit, you have only you get to use that parking, but you can't sell that parking then because it's owned by the condo. Some people care about that. Most people shouldn't, but it's something, so we have to let you know. But I've seen before where there's supposed to be a parking spot, there isn't. And then the S hits the fan, and now we got a giant problem because you bought the unit, fully intending to get parking. They're not giving you a parking spot, and maybe the status certificate was wrong. Maybe you didn't get a status. You know, how many people don't get a status certificate? News flash, you're getting a mortgage, you need a status certificate. Why? Because your bank doesn't want to lend you money unless there's a status certificate because they want the lawyer to see it. So if you think you're going to outsmart everybody and your friend lives in the building and you're like, I don't need to get a status certificate because I know that building, I drive by it a million times, my friend loves it, blah, blah. We still need that status certificate in order to close the transaction because your bank requires it. If you go to refinance, I can tell you how times just people are going to go get a new mortgage. And they're like, my mortgage is due in 3 days. I'm getting a new mortgage. Can you, they have to hire a lawyer. So I'm hired to get the new mortgage put on the property and pay out the old mortgage. Without that status certificate, I can't close. So it takes 10 days to get a status certificate unless they rush it. And that still rushes like 5 days. If you don't get that status certificate, you can't close on your refinance. So that's why we got to make our game plan and not left holding the bag. So again, the kind of things that people leave. Getting to know your lawyer. You know, I'm not going to say use me, although I'll say that I think it's awesome working with me. But I can't tell you how many times people go and they're like, okay, I'm going to use my cousin's lawyer, or I found somebody on the internet and they're like really cheap, so I'm going to save $300. You're buying $1 million property and you're saving $300. Think about that. Think about that for a second. When you get the cheapest person possible, what's going to happen? There's an issue now. You think you're going to get the lawyer on the phone? Deal closes. Issue comes up. You think you're going to get the lawyer on the phone? You might, but when you pay cheap, you know what they say? Sorry, that's extra. Sorry, that's extra. Sorry, that's extra. So that cheap lawyer ends up being more expensive than the other lawyer. So it's amazing. And that's where I know for myself, when I choose a professional that I work with, I care first and foremost service. I care about, do they know their stuff? Do they have education? Do they have experience? Can they get it done? And do I like them? If I have the trust and I have the confidence that they're gonna be able to do what they do for me, that's who I want to work with. And I'm a very loyal person. So once I work with a person, I like my tire guy, like my dentist, like my barber. I know they get my stuff done. They care about me. This means a lot to me. If I can find somebody that's $10 cheaper here, $20 cheaper here, I don't care, because if they're not going to come through for me and they're not going to give me the service that I want, I'm frustrated. That's not good. That's going to cost me time and money. And we're all professionals. We're all working in the office. Folks, when we got to put extra time into stuff because our professionals are looking after it, it's actually costing us more time and money, and our time is too valuable for stuff like that. So that's why I tell you, in everything, especially your accountant, especially your lawyer, especially your agent, especially your mortgage broker, your insurance person, your financial planner, you need to have the key people, because you skimp on that. I tell you, times people told me they have an accountant, but he's not very good. Like, what? Why do you work with them? He's nice, but he's not very good. I'm like, okay, so your accountant's job is to try to figure out how to get you the most amount of money from your income and that the least amount of money goes out. Do you realize how much you're costing yourself in life because you're working with a professional who's not very good? That scares the bejeebers out of me. You like them a lot? Go have breakfast with him. Go hang out with him. Go play tennis with him. But do not hire him as your accountant, please. And I get that a lot. It scares, honestly, the bejeebers out of me. Can't tell you people tell me the mortgage broker. Yeah, it's my cousin's friend, and I grew up with him. But yeah, he's kind of lazy. No. You need to have your mortgage set up. You need to try to get the best interest rate. You need to make sure you have the best terms. How many people don't realize something that, like, you get a mortgage, you can't just pay it out the next day if you win the lottery. Your circumstances may change. You go with a B lender, a C lender that's not one of the major banks, you may be locked in your mortgage and not even be able to pay it out for the first 2 years. They may charge you $1 bazillion in penalty. Your circumstances change. You got to go sell your property right now and you're going to go move to another country. Or you're going to go buy another property, but you sold your property now because you made good money, but you didn't buy and sell within the 3 months they required. All of a sudden, you're hit with a $20,000 penalty to get out of your mortgage. That's a lot of money because you didn't ask those questions. So these are the kind of things we raise when we talk about professionals. When people ask me, what do I look for in a mortgage broker? What are some things I think about? I tell them, make your plan. Don't just live for today. You know, you're self-employed and you're saying, oh, you know, my mortgage broker says I should get a 1-year mortgage. That's good enough for me. Like, okay, but you're paying a $5,000 fee to the lender and you're paying a $5,000 fee to the broker. That money's in the toilet. It's gone now. And 1 year later, what do you think is going to change? How are you going to get a mortgage? You know, the right broker will say, I can get you to a 5-year mortgage, but maybe we have to be a little more creative, you know, think ahead. Don't just think for today because everybody, you know, not everybody, I hate to use that term, but many people just think, how am I going to get this thing closed? How much money do I need just to make sure that I own the property and it's over? Guess what? As soon as you close and you have those keys, then reality hits. You're going to get those bills every single month. The right professional will tell you, we don't just need a budget to close. We need a budget to understand in the first year, how much money is going to cost you to carry this thing every month and to make sure you have that money. So you're not eating craft dinner every single day. Seriously. But I'm seeing it time and time again. So hiring the right professional, having the trust, getting things reviewed ahead of time, getting your mortgage set up, then things are very easy. You know, from the lawyer's end of things, like, you know, when you get the signed agreement in, we send our opening letter, getting me your homework list. You're not really corresponding with us then till really, like, the way real estate works is till the last minute, basically. So we contact you a week before closing to schedule your appointment. We meet 2 or 3 days before the closing to sign up the paperwork. We send you the information as far as all the financials, how much everything's costing, how the money's work, how much money you need. That comes closer to closing. I have people that have closings in 4 months from now, and they're like, okay, how much do I need to close right now? Can I sign the papers right now? No, it doesn't work like that. We sign the week before closing because too many things can change. The mortgage, you sign the papers with me. Let's just say by some miracle, your mortgage dropped from the sky 3 months before closing, and I signed the papers with you. Then your bank comes back 2 weeks before closing. We made a mistake. We need to change some stuff. We need to re-sign the papers then. You're not going to be very happy. I have to charge you for another appointment. So that's why too many things can change in real estate, financials and stuff. That's why we can't do it too much in advance. Things are happening more last minute. But the right professional is very calm about that, has a system to it. There's no issues. For your end, a month away seems like it's too soon. For me, a month away is a lifetime away. Your deal's in a month from now. I'm dealing with tomorrow and next week. I'll talk to you in 3 weeks, you know? That's kind of how it is. So you understand how everybody's system kind of works. And on the actual closing day, you know, people say, do I have to take the day off? How does it work? No, you should not take the day off. We sent you how much it's going to cost to close. We did all the calculations for you. We met 2 days before closing. You deposited the money in our trust account, the balance of the monies. You signed all the papers. Go to work. Go to Niagara Falls. Go do whatever you want. Go enjoy your life. Be near a computer in case I may need you to jump in to sign one thing maybe. But I hope sometime between 2 and 5, or hopefully earlier, I'm going to call you. Good news, you closed. Here's the code for the lockbox. You're going to go to your property, pick up your keys. Done. You own a property. Fantastic. So the key note there is those big steps. Own your house. Get to know your finances. You got a mortgage. You got a bank account. You may even have checks. I don't know if you guys ever seen these things called checks, but they're pretty cool. You know, this piece of paper where you put your signature and you can give it to people and they can cash them and stuff. They're still out there, believe it or not. But we are going to a world, and I'm not talking crypto and stuff, but we are moving more towards bank wires now, less bank drafts, less certified checks. So banking is changing. If you go to the Bank of Canada, read their website, if you're really bored one night and can't sleep, they're talking about how we're going to have electronic currency, but not crypto, but like our dollars. Like one day we're going to laugh how we ever had paper money. That's where we're kind of headed. That's where things are going. But get your finances in order. Know how much ever your bank account, know how much of your investments, pre-plan everything so that you can get your finances in order. People ask me all the time, land transfer tax. How does land transfer tax work? If you're a first-time buyer, you're not getting all your land transfer tax off. If you are one of those people, and I've had them just, believe it or not, that buy the first house ever, and it's $2 million, $2.5 million house, God bless you. I don't know how you did it, but all the power to you. If you're buying in Toronto, you're paying 2 land transfer taxes. Sorry about your luck. The Ontario tax and the Toronto tax. You're buying anywhere else outside of Toronto, there's only the Ontario tax for land transfer tax. But if it's in Toronto, there's 2 taxes. That's it. And if you're a first-time buyer, they give you a rebate, $4,000 off Ontario, $44.75 off Toronto. So when the calculation happens, that's what you're getting off. So you do your math, and believe it or not, even if you're buying a $700,000-$800,000 property, you're still paying a decent amount of money land transfer tax. Go to kormans.ca, go to our land transfer tax calculator, plug in there. First-time buyer. Am I a resident of Canada? Am I going to be? Am I eligible? How much would I be receiving if I bought it in Toronto? How much would it be if I bought it outside of Toronto? And condos, houses, you're paying the same land transfer tax. And
hey Jay, what if there's 2 people that are first-time home buyers and they're purchasing a home together? Is it $4,000 for each individual?
I know that we all live in our fantasy land and say, okay, so the other thing I want you to take out of today, from everything else I've said, I'm going to share a secret about life. It's not fair. I know it's hard to us believe, and life should be fair. And we are first-time buyers. We've never owned property before. We should each get the land transfer tax rebate. Well, you want to do that? Go buy separate properties. And then you can do that, by all means. 2 people, and you each want to get your land transfer tax rebate, go put one property in one person's name, put another property in another person's name. Just going to help you find 2 properties. And by all means, you're going to get $8,000 off and $89.50 off. Perfect. But no, if you're first-time buyers and you are going to go and buy the property together, it's a total of $4,044.75 off together, not both. Otherwise, I'm bringing 5 people together so I can get $15,000 off here and $15,000 off. No, it doesn't work like that. The idea being is like this. So let's say, for example, you have son and dad, and they're going to buy a property. Dad's helping son. Dad's owned property before, but son's a first-time buyer. If son is going 99% on title, son is getting 99% off the land transfer tax for the rebate. They're getting 90% of the value of the amount of the rebate that they would have been eligible for. If they go 50-50 ownership, they're only getting 50% of the rebate. There's certain eligibility you need to have to get the rebate. You need to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. You are never allowed to have owned any property, an eligible property, ever anywhere in the world. So if you own property in Slovenia, in Iceland, if you had a condo in Chicago, if you're like, my parents put my name on the title, I know, but I never signed anything, you could cook up whatever story you like. As long as you have owned property ever anywhere in the world, you are not eligible. So people tell me, I'm not sure if I owned. Well, I can't verify the country you came from. Did you own or not? No, I rented that one. I didn't own it. Okay, so you're 60 years old and you've never owned property ever in the world and you're buying a $4 million house for the first time. Yep. Okay, but I'm telling you this, if you're lying and the government finds you out, they're going to make you pay it back with penalties. So really think about that. You're swearing a document. Are you telling the truth? You're saying, I swear I'm eligible for this. So you have to be, again, never owned property ever anywhere, any owned eligible property ever anywhere in the world. Canadian citizen or permanent resident. You have to live in the property, and your spouse could not have owned property while you were married. What does that mean? So you're shacking up with someone and they're a property owner. Congratulations. You don't own property to do? Kudos. You're going to go get married. Your partner there needs to sell the property before you get married. Why? Because as soon as you got married, even without your name on title, you can have an interest in the property because now they can't sell their property without your consent. They need spousal consent. When they're going to go sell the property in their own name, they're going to say, are you married? Well, yes. Are you living in the property? Yes. Okay. Can you please bring your spouse? Because you're not allowed to sell this property without their consent. If you want to put a mortgage on this property now, you can't because you need spousal consent. So what does that mean? If you have to sign for spousal consent, that means you have an interest in the property, even though you're not registered, meaning you have lost your first time eligibility. So if you are thinking ever of being with somebody who's owned property before and they still own property, you have to think these things through, because once you get married and then you want to buy the property, that can change things for land transfer tax. So if you want that eligibility, make sure ahead of time. I had somebody, Jess, that inherited a property from their parents, and they didn't come to me first, and they went to a cheap, stupid lawyer. And what did they tell him? Oh, okay, yeah, let's put the property in your name. So parents passed away. Instead of selling the property as an estate, they transferred the property into the kids' names, brother and sister. They went off and sold the property right away. Then when they come to me and each of them wants to buy a house, they think they're first-time buyers. I said, I have a newsflash for you. You put the property in your name? Yeah, but it wasn't our house. We never lived there. It's an eligible property. So it doesn't matter if you rent it out. It doesn't matter if it's sat empty. You put a property in your name. I don't care if it's 1%. You are no longer considered a first-time buyer. You transferred property in your name. You should have sold it as an estate sale because your parent was living in there. So now we don't have to deal as far as capital gains side of it. All you had to do, you already paid the probate tax anyways. It was stupid. There was no reason for you to pay extra tax, and you've lost your land transfer tax rebate, both of you. So now you're both out 10 G's. Not smart. So that kind of stuff. So that's where pre-planning, knowing where we're at, huge, huge, huge. Man, I feel like we've covered like war and peace here, like the history of real estate. Like everybody now should be an expert already, understanding condos, houses, statuses, new construction agreements, mortgages, budgeting. Like, you all should be feeling really good right now. You have so much information. So the last part of this, we're just going to throw in just to add a nice little flavor is you are all new age, you're interested, and you're like, I have a joint venture and I think I want to do this interesting. Jess, you want the last interesting story of the day? This one's a good one.
Ready for you.
This one's good. All right. So couple contacts me. They want to buy a house, but they have two couple friends. And all the three couples are very, very good friends. So very good friends. They like to hang out in the house together, all of them, and play, they play magical chairs. They play magical beds. So why am I telling you this? You're picturing this now and you're laughing, right? But they come to me, they said, as a lawyer, okay, so just understand. So we're in this open relationship. It's all gravy and it's all cool. So we got us as the couple. We got these two other couples, and it's all far out and it's all rad and it's all gravy. It's all Woodstock, baby. And so we want to go buy a house, and we're thinking about buying the house with the two other couples. What do you think of this? I'm like, I think this is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. This can only go bad, guaranteed. They're like, what do you mean? What happens when the musical beds stop and somebody's not happy where somebody ended up? Now what? What do you mean? Okay, somebody feels like there was an arrangement and now they went past the arrangement. And they're saying, okay, I want them out of my house now. It's not that simple. And I want to buy you out. You buy me out. It's my house. It's my house. I'm taking over. You're taking over. What do we do? So if we're going to go along with this arrangement, that is the most unique joint venture we're ever going to have. We need an agreement in place. Very important. We need boundaries here. Never mind bedroom boundaries, but business boundaries, because somebody's going to want to get out of this, guaranteed almost, and somebody's going to have hurt feelings. And who's buying who out? Who has the option to? How do we do that? Who's putting in what money? Because now, also, I'm throwing a little twist. Couple number one wants to put in like 60% of the money, and the other couples are putting in 20% each. This is ripe for disaster because I put in most of the money, so it's really my house. So I don't like you doing that. And it doesn't have to be such an extreme of three couples. It's two buddies. I had one of those. I'm putting in 80%. He's putting 20%, but the 20% wants 50-50 decision making. Again, you're friends for life, right? Yes. but you're putting 80% of the money. Yeah. But your buddy wants 50% of the decision making. Yeah. Oh, this can only end badly. Like if you really want to destroy your friendship, this is the best way. If you're like, man, I don't need this friend for life anymore, go do business with them. Don't put it in writing, get into a big fight, and then call the lawyer and tell them to fix it. But in all seriousness, this all can be avoided if we made a game plan. So things I wrote over there. Is it a residence where they're going to be living in, or is it going to be a rental? You know, I had one where they're living together, but it's unequal. And even though they own it together, one has to pay rent because that compensates for the fact that they didn't put in their full money. Choose your partner wisely. You know, I had a couple that met on Tinder and they dated for 4 months and they bought a house together. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with my Tinder date having like my phone charger in their like nightstand, let alone buying a house with them. So think through, you know, business relationship is a business marriage. You're tied together. If things go wrong, how are we going to do it? It's not going to be like, oh, we always got along and it's all good. We're going to have to structure this thing. Go to your accountant, go to your lawyer, think about this. Very simple. If we're planning to own this thing, and we're going to rent it out to people and we're going to make $1 bazillion and we're never going to sell this thing, maybe you need to own it in a corporation because maybe you make too much income on your personal name and it makes no sense for you to own it personally. What if you own it in the corporation and somebody slips and falls on the property and they sue you and and now they have a lawsuit against you and they get a judgment against your personal name? Wouldn't it be much better if the judgment is against a corporation than you? You have to think about these things, people. It's like there are considerations. There's big boy, big girl considerations, but we do it right. We can set ourselves up. We can own real estate. We can make money, make passive income, build equity, buy more properties. So we buy a duplex together. I know one person who does this. They bought their first duplex. Then 5 years later, they refinanced it. It went up in value. They pulled out the equity. They bought the next duplex. 5 years later, bought the next one. In 15 years, they're sitting on 4 properties now. And all is appreciation of capital. And the tenants are paying all their income and their expenses. And they're just laughing all the way to the bank. Like they're literally laughing, I think, literally as they drive to the bank every day. That's what you want. You're going to have to get a bank account. You know, if you're working with somebody on a joint venture and you're going to own the real estate together, get a bank account together. And all the money comes in, comes out of that same account. We have to have traceability. Who's going to manage the thing? Plumbing goes, roof goes. Are you handy? Do you know someone? Think about it. Some people hire a property manager. That's great. That costs money too. Are you prepared to give up 10% of your income to them? Are you paying a fat fee? Think about this. Who's going to go collect the rent checks if they're still doing stuff like that instead of doing e-transfers? What if something goes wrong? The tenant stops making their payments and now doesn't want to leave the property. Now we got to go and get them out of there. Who's going to do that? We have to think through all that kind of stuff. On joint ventures, land transfer tax rebates. Is it going to apply? Not apply. HST rebates. Do we want to be a landlord? Do we qualify for mortgages? Mortgages are a lot different when it's a rental than when it is a one that you live in. One you live in, it's a different rate. As rentals, it's more risk for the bank and there's more costs and you're going to get a much different rate. You may not be happy with that. So that's why you have to think ahead. I ask people all the time, you know, I have sisters that work together and they own multiple properties and they're geniuses. But I tell them, what happens if one of you gets married? What happens if one of you has kids? Right now, one of you dies, the property goes to the other person. I don't think your husband's going to love that. I don't know if you're going to not want your kids to receive it. We need to do planning ahead. Seriously, like whatever we set up today may not make sense in 5-10 years from now. You have to think of your status and it's all fixable, but planning ahead means less likely to have risks and the monies and everything are going to flow where you want it to. You have to think about how much money everybody's putting in and what percentage as far as everybody's responsible for. How do we resolve disputes? That's the biggie. We put in there, who's going to buy out who? We use something called a shotgun clause very often in shareholder agreements where I come to Jess, we own a property together. And I say, Jess, I don't think this is really working out. We own this 50-50. I'm buying out your shares. Here's my offer. And I'm buying you out for $1 million for your shares. She could turn around and we have a shotgun clause and say, that's nice. I'm turning around and turning it on you. So I'm buying your shares now for that money. So the first person to make the offer better be ready because they may be the one who has the tables turned on them. So things to consider. Joint ventures, as far as many people making their agreements after the fact. Okay, we're going to go buy the property. We got our mortgage. Yeah, we'll make our plan later. No, we don't make our plans later. Like you're going to go and open up a shoe store. You think that's a great thing. You need a business plan now. You need your everything in place now. Don't go open up the shoe store and figure out later everything. It doesn't work like that. The same thing when you own real estate. Make sure you got everything in place. So you have to have your timing in place. You got to have your game plan, and you need protection. But if you do it right, I see a lot of people doing it really well, and all sorts of relationships of all kinds. Like in this today, I've already discussed like a million different examples of people that actually go and buy real estate together. It's the difference of somebody having, let's say, a decent down payment, can't buy much. Somebody else who has a decent down payment, can't buy much. You combine efforts, you can buy it together. Now you actually own real estate. This is much more popular than it's ever been. So you may have to be creative with it. And again, maybe you can go to the bank of mom and dad, which again is great if you can, but there may be other avenues. We can help you figure that out.
Let me take out my phone. Oh no, you got rid of it.
Oh, I can put it back.
Yeah, no, just in case anyone wants to just be able to save your contact information right away. But if not, no worries, Jay. Oh, you got it. All right, lovely. Yeah.
That's
me.
Do
this too as we have here.
I'm so high tech that you scan that. My business card instantly goes into your phone in nice formatting. It's like the future is now.
This is the new day and age. Yeah, lovely. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge and insight into the real estate world. So happy to have you here today. For those of you that would like to listen to what else Jonathan has to share, please check out his podcast. I know a few of you have already mentioned that is what you're going to do. Once again, I'm just going to copy and paste his information into the chat for anyone that came in late. If you have any questions, yeah, my pleasure. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. Jonathan and I work closely together. And if you want to call us, email us, you can do so. Before we wrap up, are there any questions? If so, you can just drop them in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves and ask the question as well.
Anything, any what if, any scenario, you got the lawyer, you got the realtor, now's your chance. Let's have some fun with it. You got something in your mind. If you're thinking of it, probably somebody else is. Let's hear it. Anything at all. We got a quiet group here.
Yeah, we do.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jonathan. I just honestly know, okay, I don't have a question, but I just really wanted to say I appreciate so much what you did, just coming on and sharing your knowledge. It was phenomenal, to say the least. I feel so much more educated just leaving this presentation than when I came on, and you did such a good job. I was telling Jess, I had questions, but you answered all of them throughout the presentation. So you did really good. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Praise is always welcome, and I can never get enough of it. So please, it's funny because I sat down, you mentioned this, and I remember sitting with a client not that long ago, and they kind of said something along those lines by the end of the appointment. And I said to them, how many transactions do you think I close myself in a year? And they said, I don't know, 50. I said, last year, example, I closed close to 800 deals myself, not just my law firm, but just me personally. So I probably sat in close to 800 appointments. Okay. And a lot of it, you can imagine I'm saying it over and over, right? So you think I'm sick of it. I hate it. I don't. I'm going to do this at the end of time. For example, Bon Jovi is probably sick of his most famous hits. He's not. He'll go on the concert and sing it every single night for the rest of his life. I'll do the same thing because I love seeing how people are afraid at the appointment. And by the time we're done, they have their game plan. They know how we close this transaction. They know what they got to do going forward. And then that smile and that relief, I'm I feel like I've helped somebody today, So that's where we're on this earth. If we can bring sunshine and help others, I think that's the best feeling.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And you can tell, at least I can tell the passion through, your stories, everything, you can tell it's there, so it's appreciated. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a little background wise, which is everybody has their own story, right? So people ask me often, when did you know you're going to be a lawyer? I'm when I was born. So my dad was a real estate lawyer before me. Wow. So, and they had they came from Israel, and then I was born here, and they're you're going to be the real estate lawyer. That's the way it's going to be. And we're in real estate. So I grew up in a real estate family, and all they talked about at the dinner table every single night was real estate, literally. Like I was a little kid, I'm like, why does it go like this? Why does that? And they're like, don't worry about it, you'll learn one day. And so when I was like, I don't know, like grade 6, I was already writing letters to tenants, like because my English was the best. So I was doing this stuff like in grade school. So it just like when you're so used to it and you love it, like I can imagine somebody who loves cars and they're good. Like I love cars, but I'm not handy. But like if you knew like right away how to fix a car and you've fixed like 300 cars and then 1,000 cars and like, yeah, like it's nice when you're passionate about what you do and it doesn't feel like work anymore, because like for me, like I don't feel like I have a job per se. I feel like I get to meet people, I get to learn them, we get to do stuff like, that's fun. Like the thought of me going to like a factory and like hammering stuff in like makes me nauseous. So that's that part of the chosen life. Want to segue that one is like, why did I create it? It's because I wanted to bring on other professionals, tell the stories. And like I love meditation and yoga and spirituality and stuff. And I feel like people either are living the chosen life or wanted to live the chosen life. But I'm sick of seeing people like just dragging their feet saying, I hate my job and I hate my life and I hate my spouse and I have nowhere where I'm going in life. I want to bring stories of people showing nobody had it easy. People built themselves into something. So you can follow your dreams, make a game plan, and like to inspire people. And so that's like my outlet. So maybe I'm not doing it from a law perspective, but like I like encouraging people. So I guess that's coming out in the law side.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
for sure.
yeah.
It makes all sense. Yeah, no, it's awesome. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. You made my night.
Thanks,
Thank
Jay.
you.
Jay, last question before we wrap up,
Sure.
with regards to builders and the 10-day
It's
cooling off
8:30, by the
period.
way. I'm so sorry. Like when I started talking about real estate, I thought like people always tell me like, how are you gonna get an hour's worth of material? We were already 8:30, so I'm sorry for keeping everybody over, but there's a lot of stuff to think about as a first-time buyer. Sorry, Jess.
Yeah, no worries at all. So there's a question that can a builder adjust the 10-day cooling period based off of what's going on in the market?
Builders are terrible people and they must be stopped. No. Builders can do a lot of things. Okay. Let's be clear about that. People think that, like, again, remember the life lesson I said about life not being fair? That comes out big time in new construction because the deals are all builder centric. It's all in the builder's favor, not in your favor whatsoever. So the 10-day thing, it's funny because it's 10 days from the later of when you signed your contract to when you receive their disclosure package. So there's this package they give you that nobody ever reads and they just throw it away. But it talks about the project, talks about how many units they're building, how parking's going to work, blah, 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 blah. That's called the disclosure package. You understand how they're doing budgeting. If it's a condo, what the common expenses are expected to be in 5 years from now, which is never going to hold. But it's a later of the date of when you signed your contract to when you got your disclosure package. From the 10-day thing, they're not going to amend that side of it. But all your deals, 99.99% of it, people don't realize it's still conditional on certain things from the builder side. So even though the 10-day cooling off period went off and the deal is now firm, it's firm from your end. You're not getting out of it, but the builder can come back to you and say, well, my builder financing didn't really work out because costs have really gone up for construction. So I can't get the mortgage I want. So I'm canceling this project. And that's been in the media a lot and people losing their S over it and just freaking out. But that's the way it goes, So from the 10-day cooling off period, once you sign the agreement, that part of it, but what you can do is you can extend it. So for example, let's say you bring me the deal as a lawyer and I'm going to review it for you. I have to get those amendments. I want to try to get rid of your costs. So I want to cap the levies, get rid of the hydro water meters. Because I'm looking at the roadmap in new construction. Go to the Terion schedule. That's a new home warranty program. Go to Schedule B. And in Schedule B, the builder has to list off all the extra costs. Because in the old days, back when I was a young lawyer, they could hide your costs anywhere in the agreement. So we had to read the agreement like fine tooth because they could throw costs into any section, literally. Now they can't do that. If it's not in one of the schedule, in the Terion schedule, it can't be plastered somewhere in the agreement. So that's good relief. But I write to them and I tell them, I want you to do this and this, and the builder doesn't get back to me and the lawyer doesn't get back to me. If we don't say nothing, that deal's firming up regardless in 10 days. So we got to make sure we extend the conditional period, the review period, until we get the firm answer from them. So But I've had builders, I have never had them extend the conditional period and change a cooling off period. So we call it conditional period, cooling off period, review period. It's all the same stuff. They're interchangeable. But they've definitely canceled deals based on the fact that they couldn't get their financing. And people like put a class action lawsuit and they want to sue them for that. Good luck with that. The same way I've had people not that long ago that bought a new construction. And of course, everything's going to go up because it can only go up. That's real estate. And turns out that buying that $1.5 million townhouse wasn't the best idea, because by the time they went to close the thing, the bank said it's worth only $1 million or $1.2 million, and they can't get a mortgage on it. So that happened in a project, and the people came back to me and said to me, we want to put a class action lawsuit against the builder because we can't close now. So I said to them, I only have one question for you. And they're like, what? If the thing went up to $2 million, would you give the builder back the 500 extra? Well, no. I go, you know what this is called? And this is reality with real estate. Everything you're putting your money into is called gambling. Okay. Whether you want to admit it or not, anything you put your money into literally is a form of gambling, except for the fact you put it in the savings account, you know, you're guaranteed 0.0002% interest. So that's safe, but you're not making any money. The higher the return, the more the risk. You buy a property and in 2 months, it went up by 300,000. You're a genius, right? But guess what? If you look at the cycle of real estate for many decades, what we're doing right now is unprecedented times. The interest rate is lower than it's ever been forever. And I know you've heard this ad nauseum, but it wasn't that long ago where things came to a little bit of a standstill. And go back to 2007 and see what happened. In early 2008, the builders couldn't give away product. Everybody just stood there for 3 months because the US economy was in the toilet and nobody knew what to do. So then nothing would move. That was the best time to buy. The builders were begging you. They would give you any incentive you wanted to just take the product because nobody was buying. Nothing really went down. Just nothing was moving. There was all this inventory and everybody just standing and because everything's what's going to happen in the States is going to happen to us, but it never happened. But that was the best time to buy. So that's where now people are saying there's no inventory. I better buy this immediately. And it's like with cars, watches right now, you go to Rolex store, there's no Rolexes. So I better pay whatever I can for Rolex because this thing can only go up. And the Ford dealership has no trucks. So I'm paying $10,000 over asking on the truck because there's never been any trucks. It's going to change. It's just a question of when. Eventually there will be inventory. Sure. We just can't predict. We all could predict this. We'd all be in Tahiti right now and we'd all be bazillionaires. So that's where, again, it's a form of gambling, and just try to weigh out your odds and everything else. But know in the long run, it'll all balance out. But like the same thing with stocks. But if you're going to buy and sell and, flip your real estate for a quick profit, nobody can guarantee you that.
Perfect. Thanks for asking the question and answering. That was really detailed. Jay, we've got a few more questions. Are you okay to keep going, or
sure,
you have to go?
No.
Yeah. Ryan,
this is my hourglass. When this reaches empty, we're done.
Ryan, you can pose your question.
Hey guys, I just want to say, Jonathan, it was amazing meeting you. I love your energy. You just have such amazing energy, and this webinar was amazing. I love talking to professionals when they know what they're talking about. Because does that happen to you guys? You guys are talking to people and they just don't know what they're talking about. It happens to me all the time. But this webinar
Can I let you know a little secret, Ryan?
Yeah.
97 to 98% of the population is utterly useless. I don't know how they get themselves dressed in the morning. I don't know how they make it to their jobs. It utterly baffles me. I'm not saying that tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of people out there that I don't know how they function and they don't get it right. And then when you have a professional that has no patience whatsoever, they just fluff you off. You ask a bunch of questions, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear just so you can get out of their faces, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I was gonna ask you a question for the land tax rebate.
Land transfer tax rebate, yeah.
Sorry, I have my notes I took here, but I was gonna say,
are you an engineer, Ryan?
Me, no, just curious.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna ask, do you need to live in the property that you buy to be eligible?
1000%, my friend. There is a rule as far as what time frame. I can't tell off the top of my head if it's 6 months or 9 months, but there is a rule that you have to live in that property with an X amount of time in order to be eligible. And no, you moving in for 1 day is not going to cut it. So, because the government says, because the government's idea is, we're good people, we're great. And so what we're doing is you're buying a property for you to live in yourself. I'm going to help you out. The way it worked was back in the day, Ryan, was the rebate used to be only for new construction. So when I bought my first property back in 1852, I did not get a land transfer tax rebate because I bought a resale condo. I didn't want to buy new construction. I don't like new construction. For me, I want certainty. I want to buy what I want to buy, and I just want to move in. I don't have patience for it. I don't want to deal with builders. So I didn't get a land transfer tax rebate. When they introduced the Toronto land transfer tax, which was a temporary measure, by the way, which like HST was a temporary measure, they said, by the way, now I know there's a double tax, but we're going to have land transfer tax rebates for new and resale. So they incorporated it that way, but they made it very clear on their criteria. And one of them is you have to live in the property. The same way, when you go buy new construction, it kind of a segue in taxes. When you buy new construction, the way it works, you go buy a new condo, Ryan, and you're going to go live there, right? Your price is $500,000 all in. Builder is going to pull out the HST out of that 500 and remit the HST out of there. Okay, so you're not paying 500 plus HST, but the builder also knows that when you buy new construction and you're going to live in there, the government's really nice. They're like, hey, we're going to give you back part of the HST because we're good people here, so we want to encourage people to buy and live. So we're giving back some of the HST money, which is about $24,000. The builder says, hello, everybody come here? Yeah. Sorry, I thought my sound went out there. They say, you're going to pay 500 all in. You're going to sign some papers. And instead of you going to get that 24,000, the builder's going to pocket that 24,000. I'm not going to charge you that 24,000, but you have to fill out all the forms so that we can write to CRA and get that money. So that when they sell you for 500, they know 24 is going in their pocket. But if you don't sign a piece of paper saying you're going to live in that unit, they charge you for that 24,000, and they say you can go apply for it afterwards. And there's criteria on that. Either you're going to live in there or you're going to use it as a rental. But for example, you buy a new condo to flip it to make quick money. You're going to sell it after a month and flip it for money, or you're going to use it as an Airbnb. You're disqualified. You give the builder that 24,000. You're never seeing it back. So taxes are very important depending on the type of property. So new construction has HST issues. First-time buyers have land transfer tax issues. We need to know. So you're buying a first-time property, and you're gonna rent it out. The next property you buy to live in, you're disqualified because the rule is as long as you own an eligible property. So the government says we don't care that you didn't live in there. So you bought it, you rent it out, you're done.
So can you live in it and then rent it out like a month later?
They're again not that stupid on it. So I can't tell you that they have. Depending on the rules, the different accounts will tell you different things. Generally, the guideline is you're supposed to live in there between 6 months to a year.
Okay.
But you could also live in there and rent out a room. That's an option. A lot of people, I know people that buy houses, they live in the basement, they rent out the upstairs, and they make their money back, or vice versa. They live upstairs, rent out the basement. So you can have a hybrid part of it. You can buy the condo and rent out a room theoretically, as long as you're living in there.
Okay. And sorry, one last question.
No, go for anything.
What would be the best advice for someone that's not using their parents' mortgage? Or like not using their parents for like, would it be like find someone else to buy a property with, which I know that comes with like a ton of problems, which at that point I might as well like wait until I have $1 million myself and buy a property.
There's ways
around. What would be best advice?
Look, there's ways around it. You don't have to put down 20%. Okay. But when you don't put down the 20%, so why is this magic number? Everybody says 20%. Why do I have to put down 20%? I'll tell you why. Because you put down 20%, and when you get your mortgage, they're not going to charge you special mortgage insurance. So I go to RBC, CIBC, I borrow 500,000. They give me 500,000. The end. You know, I'm a partner in a law firm. I'm not losing sleep at night as far as being able to get a mortgage. But somebody starting off, you know, they got their first job. They're making like 50K a year. They got a bunch of student debt and stuff. You know, they're saying I don't have enough savings, so I can't put down 20%. So you can only put down 10%. Well, the bank will come and you're going to work with a mortgage broker. You may not be able to work with the CIBC or RBC, but they'll find you a lender. But what happens is they purchase what's called high ratio insurance because you're greater risk for them. If you don't put down a 20%, more likely you're going to default. So they buy special default insurance to protect the lender. Guess who's paying that insurance? You. So when you're footing the bill, that default insurance could be 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. It depends on how much you're borrowing and depends on how much you put down and the risk. So when you do the calculation, the bank says, hey, we're good people. Like all these people are great people, right? But they're all charging you money. You don't have to give us a check for 20,000. We're just rolling it into the mortgage. Just roll. So we're going to give the lawyer 500. You owe 520. Not bad. But you're saying, okay, well, now I'm losing $20,000. Well, it still gave you the ability to buy a property versus not buying a property. And it gave you a really good interest rate. So now you're getting prime minus 1.0 whatever. That's pretty good. So that works out really well. And guess what? That property you bought and you put an extra 20, now it's worth an extra 100 a year later. So that worked out really well. So you speak with your mortgage broker. There's two things they look at. They look at your income, and then they look at and your debts and all that, and they do those ratios, and then they look at how much equity is in the property.
Cool.
So, some people, they purchase, let's say, a $2 million home, but, they only have to borrow 1.2. They can put down 800,000. Banks like them, For you, depending on how much money you're able to put down, you speak to a mortgage broker, they may still be creative with you. Even people who are self-employed and don't show a lot of income, they find a way, but it's how much you can stomach from like paying that high ratio insurance, that they'll get you to, they may find you a private lender for a couple of years, but then you have to pay a 1% fee of the mortgage to the lender, 1% fee to the broker. And you're like, oh, I just paid $30,000 to them. And it's like, how much am I paying? But again, you have the ability to own property now versus saying, I'm going to wait 10 years when I can actually do it. Fine, Ryan, like that $1 million property you looked at 10 years from now is now $2 million. And you probably would have been better. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of calculations you have to do. Nobody can promise you what's going to come up in life, but if there's a way to find and do it on your own, great. Otherwise, you start looking at the bank of mom and dad, like we said, and then you may have to be creative. Like you may have a buddy and you say, you know what, you're both in the same boat. And if you're going to live in the property, you each get your room, whatever. So instead of you guys not being able to buy a property, now if you could put in the exact same down payment and you're both making the payments together and you're carrying the expenses, everything's 50-50, life is very easy. It's like even married couples, when I talk about it, the issue with married couples is not the fact that they're getting married and marriage sucks or marriage is good. It's the fact that there's inequality. Very often you have one person putting in more and one person putting less. There's resentment, there's issues. When you put down the same down payment, carry everything the exact same way, it's very easy because if the relationship ends, cut it, move on. But we know it's 50-50 anyways. So if you're in a 50-50 type of relationship like that with a friend even, may be a good way. People are being very creative like this. Like I've heard of things where like they're thinking outside the box now. Like they're talking about taking a house and making condos out of the rooms. So like we buy a house and there's a 5-bedroom. We all have to share the kitchen. We got to share the bathrooms and the entrances. We're living like a frat house, but we all own our rooms. That's where it's headed because, people can't afford this stuff. There's going to be real estate where you and I will never actually physically see it, but we're part of a group where we put in money and that group owns as one thing, the condo as an investment. So you get to be in real estate, but you have little decision-making and you have to pay management fees and all that, but at least you're in the game. So the more you want to be in the game, the more risk you're going to have. So maybe, having somebody that, is close to you, that anybody can dig up, friends, family, do it. But then note, you guys should put a contract together. So in case the shit hits a fan, we will be able to deal with that.
Cool. And is it true that when you have your first property, it's easier to buy other properties because of the equity you have from your first property? Or
whenever you lose your property virginity, it's always easier the next time around, 1,000%. Yes. The hardest one is the first time. You're most inexperienced. You don't know what's happening. By the time you're finished at the lawyer's office, you're exhausted and you're just confused. It's like a train hit you. The next time you come around, you're going to remember the process. It's going to be much simpler. It's the same principle, seriously. And the people that I know that have the most, like what I talk about this a lot on the podcast. Your jobs, whatever you guys are doing, I don't know what you do for a living, but whatever it is, it's not going to make you a fortune. Like if you think, unless some of you have like, or I don't know what from a job, but like 99% of jobs are not going to make you a fortune. Your job is what's called seed money. So it gives you enough seeds to plant in the ground and build you real estate. And so that real, or whatever you want to do, stocks or crypto or NFTs or whatever the heck you're into, but you need to, at the end of the day, the richest clients I have all have one thing in common. They all own real estate. And it's a very simple equation. They save up enough money to buy the property and then refinance, get enough equity and go to the next one. The example, I had a lot of clients like, like bricklayers, like Portuguese bricklayers from the 70s. And they own all these properties at St. Clair and Lawrence. And they laid bricks and nobody thought they had 2 pennies to their name, but they saved up their money, bought a property, and they kept buying the next one and the next one and the next one. And one property, the hardest thing is actually, in my estimation, the second property. Most people cannot get the second property without selling the first property. If you can find a way to keep that first property, get the second property, and then refinance those 2 in 5 years, and they have equity in 2 properties, then it snowballs. Then that's the whole effect. Most people cannot get to the 2 property level even.
Good to know. Thank you.
No problem. No, I've seen them enough. Trust me. I've seen people of all shapes and sizes, holdings, like, and the richest people.
The stories you have, yeah.
The richest people that you saw them on the street, you'd have no clue that they have 2 pennies to rob each other, because they didn't go and buy Gucci bags and Louis Vuitton shoes. Even though I have a pair of LV shoes, but that doesn't matter. But because I'm a shoe collector, but that's another story for another day. I like kicks, that's why. But no, in all seriousness, you see them because they put every single penny into real estate, and they're just laughing.
Yeah.
Like, imagine in your life, you're in your 50s and 60s, and your only job in life is to go and collect rent checks every month. Think how amazing that is. And you get to live a lifestyle, and somebody else is paying your lifestyle, and you don't have to go work. Like, that's what some people are doing. And so they have their jobs, and then they have their passive income, and they're like literally laughing. But because people live paycheck to paycheck, have no budget, are always, most of my clients that I meet live beyond their means. Like, the people you think have the most incomes are living beyond their means. They have the cottage, the house, the fancy cars, the trips, the bags, and all that. And what happens is, in 5 years, they spent more money than they possibly make. They have lines of credits, they have car leases. And what they do is, when the equity builds in their house, what do? They pay off all their debt from the house. So they go, and you ever heard of a refinance and roll into the mortgage? So again, we talked about that rolling thing. So they have like 6 credit cards, and they got 100K on their 6 credit cards. They go refinance their house, pay off those credit cards, so they're gone. But guess what's gone also? The equity in their house. If they didn't incur those stupid credit cards, they could have done that equity and put a down payment on the next property. What's going to happen to them? And I tell them every time, I don't want to see you back in 5 years with the same 5 credit cards, but they will. Because people have this need to keep up with the Joneses, but they're spending their money. But the smart ones know how to take the money and use it for investments. Sorry, hard realities, and I don't.
Yeah, you're a genius.
Genius.
It's common sense. It's common sense, but
no, it's
common sense
really
is very lacking in this world.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Tina, did you have a question to pose?
I did have a question. First of all, thank you so much, guys, for this. This is so helpful. Jessica and Jonathan, really, I really appreciate it. I just had a quick question. I had to step away, so I don't know if you already mentioned this. If you did, let me know, and I'll just watch the recording. But about mortgages, I don't know anything. I don't know too much about it, and I was just wondering the difference between a private lender or the bank, and what route would you recommend for a first-time home buyer? I know a lot of it depends on the income. If you can go a little bit into that.
Yeah, we touched upon a little bit of it, but we didn't go too much into it. So it's funny because I have a business degree, which I went into business school before I went to law school, but I can't give business advice because I'm licensed for legal advice. But why I did that was because I took accounting, I took finance because I wanted to understand economics, how things work. Because I knew I'm going to advise people on real estate, advise corporate clients. I have to understand how business works. So from the mortgage side of things, there's going to be 2 ways you're getting a mortgage generally. Let's say, Tina, you went and got a bank account. You know, you're 5 years old and your parents open up an account for you and you're all excited, and then you're like a teen, and then eventually you have one in your own name and you got your little savings and stuff. And, I've heard I've been TD forever and I've been CIBC forever. Like, you have this glowing relationship and they love you and they think about you. But the reality is, to some extent, there is something about having a history with a bank. The same way, I'm Rogers and I've always been Rogers. I never go to Bell, screw Bell, screw Rogers, I'm with Bell, But when you're there long enough, there is something with the relationship where, you can come and say, my name's Tina. I've been banking with, UCIBC for 25 years and I have all my investments in you and everything. Now I'm looking at getting a mortgage. Can you help me? They're like, oh, yes. Upselling. I want to have as many products with Tina as possible, because then when we get Tina, then we're going to get her to the financial advisor. We're going to sell her some life insurance. We're going to sell her on RSPs. When she has kids, we're going to sell her RESPs. Like, they see a world of upselling with you, right? So that's where people forget about that relationship, where a lot of people say, you know what, I just want the best rate. They look online, shittiestmortgages.com and go to the guy with the $5 suit. And they said, yeah, I can get you the best mortgage, buddy. You don't worry about it. I'm the best, And then what happens is you're a first-time buyer and you call me up a week before closing. Yeah, he said he'd get me the best mortgage. I can't find my mortgage broker now. And I gave him a bunch of documents and I'm really scared. That's the worst feeling on the planet. So you went to CIBC, for example, I'm not endorsing CIBC by any stretch, but like you go to RBC, for example, but you have that relationship, you have a rep, you're understanding there, can I get that mortgage? In a world best scenario, if you could be with one of the 5 major banks and have a relationship, what will happen is the next time you go to refinance, you're dealing with things, you want to get more mortgages, you want to get another property, they can look and say, okay, we got multiple products, we can work with this person. That's when you start to eventually be the VIP client, where they like bring you to a special room to sign your papers. You don't have to stand in line with the teller anymore. That's what we all want to work towards. We want to be VIPs, right? When we're going to get the cheapest mortgage possible, and then 5 years go to refinance with the next person, and then 5 years the next, we never heard of these institutions. Issue comes up. I don't have a bricks and mortar place to go to. I got to call the 1-800 number and I don't know who this person is. Like, I don't have a banking rep in my bank. I could just say, hey, Jim, what's going on? No, you get a new person every time. Well, it's a call center from India. It's a call center from there where, they're not local. They're in Montreal. Like, you got nobody. And then you call back. Oh, no, that person didn't say that. And, now you feel like very confused and everything. I need to get checks from my account. They're making me get a credit card with them. I have to get a bank account with them. Those are not good feelings. So watching out with that. The other way is getting a mortgage broker that, you spoke with the lawyer, you spoke with the agent. That we work with a lot of professionals. We've closed deals with them. I can tell you, I have this mortgage broker. I've probably closed 1,000 deals with them. All their customers all love them. Versus looking up on the internet and having nothing to go by. It blows my mind hiring a professional off the internet that nobody's endorsed. I can tell you, every single person I work with, I went to a professional I trust and I said to them, I know you're in this industry. Do you have a person that does this, this, this? That's your drywall guy? Done. That's your insurance guy? Done. I do blindly because I know if they're endorsing it, I know it's the way to go. This is how the world works. And when, for example, I have an insurance person and then you call them and you say, oh, Jonathan introduced me. Then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, but they have to do a better job because if they piss you off, they're pissing me off. They're not getting more business. You understand? So there's a relationship aspect of it. You go to the right mortgage broker. They have X number of banks available and lenders. They're shopping it around for you, but they're getting you the best rate and they know the ins and outs versus, and you got to remember, but also mortgage brokers, they get a kickback. So they're saying to you, there's no fees. Don't worry about it. But different lenders give them different kickbacks. So if one lender is giving them a better kickback, they'll say, oh, maybe it's better for you to go to this mortgage. They're steering you that way. Why? Because it's better for them, even though it's not better for you. But the right mortgage broker doesn't care about that. They want relationships. They're saying, here's the top 5. Here's what this person requires. Here's what that person requires. This is the best way for you to go. This is better in this way. They can walk you through that kind of stuff. So I think bottom line is you're either going with a bank you have an existing relationship with and you don't have the relationship, find a relationship. Speak to people, get introduced, bring somebody that that has a good relationship with a bank, get introduced to them, then they refer you. Now you already have that relationship. So you almost have like an in, build a relationship with some sort of bank so you can build multiple products with them and or build up a good relationship with a mortgage broker, get one introduced to one so that they're setting you up. So you're doing that, Tina, and then either you got it with the bank, whether you got to that mortgage broker. Now you have the confidence they can get their stuff done. You know what's going to cost you. You know what the game plan is, and then you can have confidence to go buy real estate. And I can tell you, shitty, unprofessional mortgage brokers that just do this as a hobby kind of thing, and they have another job and they're just doing this on the side. When they disappear and you can't find them, and you have a closing coming up, that's a really scary process. That's when we go to the private lender, and the private lenders can be like a pool of sharks if you don't know what you're doing. And the private lender basically says, okay, so she's buying a property, she's putting down 20%. I don't care what her income is. Okay, so most people are paying like 2% interest, 3%. For her, 8%. You're stuck to close the transaction, Tina, or else the seller is going to sue you. So you got to close, and you have no other options because you left it to the last minute. You didn't get a good mortgage. So you got to go to private lender. I'm giving you 8%. That's a good deal. What are you going to do? Not close, Or do you take the 1-year mortgage at 8%, pay 1% fee of the whole mortgage to the lender and another 1% fee to the broker. So you're out like possibly 20, 30K. It can be very scary if you don't set up. But some private lenders, you could be self-employed. And so you don't have, can't show a great amount of income. You've never owned real estate before. You go to the private lender, but you can show that, there's income there and there's a good equity in the property. You're putting a good down payment. They may give you a mortgage at 5%, which is still not fabulous, but better than the alternative. And then you build up history in the property. And then when you go to refinance, you go back to CIBC, RBC. I'm an existing owner. I have history. Now they like you more. Part of the thing that hurts a lot of first-time buyers, they have no credit. They're like, oh, I never wanted to be in debt, so I paid cash everything. Well, then you don't have a history showing that you borrowed money and paid it off, which means you have no credit score, which means you're scary for the bank. The bank wants to see you're able to carry credit, you're able to pay on time and have that history. So you're kind of damned if you've been safe your whole life.
And that is why I'm going into schools and teaching all of this to 13 and 14-year-olds.
You mean you mean the I want it now generation?
They're like, why do we need to know this, Jess? It's not important. I said it's really important, trust me. All right, guys, it's 9:00. We did not anticipate this lasting till 9, but I hope you all were able to take more than one thing away from today's conversation. Jonathan, thanks again. Always appreciate your expertise, your honesty, and having your presence here with us. Once again, if anyone needs to reach out to him, his handle is right there on the screen, and you all have my contact information as well. And you need to be connected with Jonathan.
Kormans' YouTube channel, and check out the podcast. I think you guys will enjoy it. I got a Major League Baseball player coming on next week, and I recently had a professional wrestler and a boxer on, and we talked life, so it's kind of fun. Jess, we should do this again.
Awesome. We should. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is our second time we're doing it, and I hope we can continue doing this moving forward.
We'll think of other topics. We'll think of other topics, like things that come up, and we can have on other topics and things that we think that can be issues in the future from a real estate perspective, and you never know what we'll come up with.